All right, guys, we just stopped, and Beacon scared the giant away and got his boots. Let's get to the second part of the story. Some time later, the gentleman told Beacon, "Stay home with the cows today. There's trouble coming to the town of Kinsale." "Trouble?" asked Beacon. "'Tis the day of the dragon," his master shuddered. "Every 7 years, that wicked lizard rises from the ocean and swallows the fairest maiden in the land." So he's swallowing some lady in the land. "And what if she does not care for that?" Beacon asked. "Oh, she has no choice, for she will be tied to a post. If she's not there, the dragon will blow the sea onto the land and wash away the village and drown all the people." "That is trouble indeed," cried Beacon. "This year the lass is Princess Finola, the king's own daughter." He squinted at Beacon. "Don't you be thinking of going. The crowd might crush one as small as you." Going was just what Beacon had in mind, though. While his master slept, Beacon put on the giant's boots and thrust the sword into his bull-tail belt. Then he climbed up on the donkey and rode off to Kinsale. Beacon spied the king's castle first, for it was perched high on a headland above the blue-green sea. So there's the castle up there. As he trotted down the hillside into town, Beacon saw carts crowding the shore and a girl tied to a post at the water's edge. A band of gold circled her shiny black hair, and Beacon knew she was Princess Finola. The scene was strangely quiet. Only the voice of the princess was heard over the splash of the waves. "Will no one help me?" she cried. People looked away from her. Some hung their heads, but nobody moved. So everybody was scared. "I shall," cried Beacon, sliding from the donkey. "Let me sharpen my sword on that dragon. I'll—" "Look behind you!" the princess screamed. Beacon wheeled about. The sea was bubbling as if coming to a boil, and suddenly a monstrous dragon burst from the water. Flames flashed from its mouth, and its barbed tail churned the waves to a froth. Scales plated its body like armor, and the nails on its toes were sharper than knives. Beacon raised the giant's sword with trembling hands. "Beware, dragon!" he shouted and the battle began. "Oh!" moaned the crowd as the dragon almost caught Beacon in its claws. "Bravo!" cried the princess as Beacon's sword drew blood. But the creature acted as if the strikes from the sword were just little tiny pinpricks, so he didn't act hurt at all. But by afternoon, Beacon was so tired he could hardly lift the blade. Grasping his belt instead, he hurled it at the dragon. The bull's tail wrapped itself around the fiery jaws, tying his mouth shut. The dragon snorted and heaved, but each move tightened the belt. Soon only 2 thin streams of smoke curled from its nostrils. With a sizzle, the monster sank beneath the waves, taking the tail of the speckled bull down with it. People cheered and rushed to Beacon, almost crushing him, just as his master had warned him. Then he heard, "Little Bigfoot!" and saw his 3 stepsisters ready to pounce on him like 3 cats on a mouse. Beacon jumped on his donkey. "Wait!" cried Princess Finola. She reached for Beacon and caught him by the boot. "I want to thank you." "You're welcome." Kicking the donkey, Beacon took off down the road as the dragon still chased him, and the princess was left holding his boot. The next day, Beacon took his herd to pasture, just as always, but now he had only 1 boot. His bull-tail belt was gone forever, and the tip of the giant's sword was bent like a fish-hook. Beacon dug a hole and buried the sword under an apple tree. "That's the end of it all," he said. But it wasn't. Princess Finola still had the other boot, and she was determined to find its owner. "I'll marry the one whose foot fits this boot, and none other," she insisted. It was he and he alone who saved me from the dragon. The king sent a royal messenger to crisscross the country from sea to mountains with orders to find the owner of the boot. Many wished to marry the pretty dark-haired princess. Soldiers and sailors, fishermen and farmers, everybody tried on the boot. Some stuffed the toe with sawdust, others used sheep's wool, and more than a few wore layer upon layer of thick socks because the boot was so big. Still, the boot was too big for any of them. It's giant-sized, they grumbled. A year passed before the messenger arrived at the gentleman's house. When Beacon's master slipped on the boot, it slipped right off again. "Let the lad have a go at it," he said. "A cow herd?" The messenger winked at the gentleman, but he handed the boot to Beacon. Why not? Of course the boot fit Beacon as snug as his own skin. He kicked up his heel, grinned at his master, and said to the astonished messenger, the messenger was shocked, "I've got the mate to it in the cowshed." So the mate is the other boot. Soon enough, Beacon was on his way to Kinsale again, wearing both boots, on the gentleman's fine horse. "How grand!" cried the princess when he arrived at the castle. "We're just the same height, sir, so I know we will see eye to eye on everything." He grinned at her. "You can call me Beacon," he said, "for that's what my mother named me." "You shall be Prince Beacon," said Princess Finola. She hugged him, and the lad blushed, as red as the hair on his head. The end. So, on Seesaw today, there is an activity that asks you to write one way that Cinderella and the Irish Cinderlad are the same, and one way they're different. But we can do more than that. We can do them more than just one way. I want you to write 3 ways the 2 stories are the same and 3 ways the 2 stories are different. So think about it. The Irish Cinderlad was about Beacon, and he's a boy, right? Cinderella was about Cinderella, and she was a girl. So there's one thing that's different. There was missing shoes, right? But there were different kinds of shoes. So think about the 2 stories, and I want you to tell me 2 ways they're the same and 3 ways they're the same and 3 ways they're different. I can't wait. All right, guys.